Hello, and thanks for joining us for the Farming Today podcast. I'm Kaz Graham, and in this edition, what impact are the extended heat waves across Europe having on food production, and how will that affect supplies here in the UK? And we're counting the human cost of the livestock disease Bluetongue, which is sweeping through some parts of southwest England.
Farmers are exhausted. The heat's not helping. A lot of people feel at the end of their tether, I think, is what you would say.
More on that shortly. First, though, the weather is hotting up again. There's an amber heat health alert covering much of England from today through until Friday. Many of us are likely to ditch the hot dinner and sling some extra salad in the shopping basket. And we're talking about UK salad production all this week. Unseasonably hot weather doesn't just increase our demand for lettuce, tomatoes and other salad crops. It also has an impact on how well they grow, the diseases they might catch and the working conditions of those planting and harvesting them. Pam Fletcher's family business, Grow Well Salads, near Tarleton on the coastal plain between Preston and Southport, grows little gem lettuce, cress and pea shoots for the wholesale market in both England and Scotland. I joined her in one of their very warm greenhouses.
This is one of our little gem greenhouses. As you can see in front of us, we've got the crop that's going to be cut next. We have lettuce that have been planted more recently, and we've got ground that is cleared, ready to plant. As you can feel, it's quite warm in here today.
What kind of temperatures does it get up to in these glasshouses?
It can get up to the late 30s on a bad day. We do have fans that will run to circulate the air, and obviously we have our vents as high as they will go, but later on in the day it does get extremely warm.
I guess they like this heat, do they?
They certainly grow fast in it, but they don't always like it. The varieties that we're on now are different to the ones that we were on, say, 6 or 7 years ago. They were more old-fashioned varieties and they were a bit tougher. In the last few years, there's been a disease that's come in that's soil-borne, and so we've had to use more overbred and hybridised varieties, which are great. They don't get that disease, but they're a little bit more like a very delicate racehorse. They've been overbred, and they do tend to get other problems with them.
Can we get down and have a look at one of these lettuces?
Of course we can. So I'll just pick one out to show you there. So that's your nice heart coming in the middle. And these are the seed leaves at the bottom. So those will be cut off properly when we harvest. We're just trying to keep it as nice and fresh as we possibly can in these conditions.
What can you do to mitigate against that heat? You've got fans in here. What else do you do?
Yeah, that's really it. We have looked at painting the roof with whitewash, but then if you end up with a wet summer, then it can be a bit dark and they don't heart up enough.
Yeah, and as we're walking through the glass house, these lettuce here on the right-hand side, they're much smaller, obviously planted later. Mm-hmm. How long will it take to grow a lettuce? And do they grow much quicker in this heat?
They certainly do. Usually at this time of year, you'd be looking at 4 weeks. These are under 4 weeks turnaround at the moment.
What's the impact of that?
It's trying to manage your sales. So fortunately, because it is warm, the sales increase. But when it cools down, you've got the critical mass of the growth that it's done still coming up behind you, and demand drops. So it's a little tricky from that point of view, trying to balance everything out again. It's all about balance in here.
It's really quiet in here at this time of day. And part of that, I guess, is because you don't want your staff working in this heat.
You have to get people in while it's cooler and darker. In the morning, they're cutting with headsets on. So they've got head torches so they can see what they're doing. We bring them in when it's cooler, and then we can get them into the pack house and then back out again before it gets too hot.
And down into a different glass house. And we're just walking past the cress now, and the cress, it's like a manicured lawn, isn't it, this cress?
It really is. We try and keep it nice and flat, so it looks nice and even when you pack it in the boxes that way.
Where does it all go? Who buys cress?
It goes to the wholesale markets, and then from there it usually goes into sandwich manufacturers, bakeries who are making sandwiches, restaurants, schools, hospitals, those sort of places.
And does it care about the heat? Cress is one of those things that everybody grows at school when they're about 6, don't they?
That's right.
Is it easy to grow? grow?
It's fairly easy to grow. Again, it's growing very fast at the moment. In winter, we could grow a crop in 2 weeks. We just about did 3 or 4 days the other week from start to finish. It's a brassica, so it is fairly forgiving in the heat. We're doing what we can to keep the heat off so it doesn't wilt too much. We've got the thermal screens up here. We keep those across to keep the sun off because it will literally scorch the crop, because cress is essentially a seedling, too much sun and it will just droop. And you'll see we've got some fans here. They're working away at points like bilio, just trying to even things out.
That's Pam Fletcher in Lancashire. And we've got more on salad all this week, just as England and Wales look set to be entering into heatwave number 5 of this summer. Well, almost 3/4 of England is now in drought. The National Drought Group yesterday added the East Midlands, Lincolnshire and Northamptonshire, Kent and East Sussex and the Solent and the South Downs into drought status, as well as all of Wales being in drought. Well, the prolonged lack of rain in some places is having a major impact on farming and food production, as we have been reporting. But this hot, dry blast of weather isn't, of course, just across the UK. And as Tom Bradshaw, president of the National Farmers Union, explains, the extreme heat across Western Europe has an impact on supplies of fresh produce here too.
It's not just the UK that's impacted. The rest of Europe is facing, or certainly Western Europe is facing, the same conditions. France has had exceptionally hot and dry conditions down into Spain and even North Africa. Those countries are important because when we have a problem with our production here, they're normally the countries that we would turn to say, well, can they supplement the food that's available here? So what we're seeing with climate change is not just the challenge producing the food here, but also those countries that we would normally be relying on for imports.
Well, I've been speaking to Cedric Benoit from Copa Cogeca, the body that represents European farmers and farming cooperatives. And I asked him how farming in the EU is being affected by this extreme hot weather.
At the moment in France, for example, we are facing the 4th or 5th heatwave. The 2026 harvest across Europe has been severely impacted by a combination of geopolitical instability, fertilizer shortage, and extreme climate conditions. Spain, France, Italy, and Hungary have suffered, resulting in sharp yields decline, especially for maize, sunflower, and sugar beet. Wildfires in countries like France, Portugal, Spain, and Italy further exacerbate the situation by destroying pasture.
What about the impact on fresh produce?
The salad for the fresh produce, if you haven't irrigation in France, at the moment, this year, you cannot produce. And there are many closures of plants. For example, in my region, there is a plant named Les Crudettes. They cannot have enough lettuce, so there is not lettuce in the supermarket.
And are you finding that say, in the French shops, there is a deficit of lettuce, tomatoes, fresh produce?
It's the reality of the life of the French consumer today.
What can producers do to try and mitigate the pressures of having this very hot weather?
I can irrigate my farm, but I think that tomorrow the genetics tools will be the most relevant tools for avoiding all the consequences of the climate change. I welcome the new regulation in Europe, but I think it's too late. We have lost a lot of time in Europe. And at the same time, the rest of the world has worked a lot of the genetic adaptation of the different crops. And I think that genetics tools will be the main tools for avoiding all the consequences of climate change. We have to adapt also the management of the farm. It's an holistic approach, and there is not only one tools who can help the farmer to face the climate change.
Cedric Benoit from Copa Cogeca. Livestock farmers in Devon, Cornwall and Somerset are at the epicentre of the current outbreak of Bluetongue. The most recent numbers from DEFRA show 1 case in Scotland, 5 in Wales, fewer than 20 cases in the rest of England, but more than 260 clustered in those 3 counties. And with Bluetongue, each case means a farm with livestock affected by the disease. Bluetongue can be fatal to animals like sheep and cattle, but it doesn't affect humans. It's spread by midges and it makes animals lethargic and lame, as well as causing birth defects or spontaneous abortions. Now, seeing your livestock sick or dying can be extremely traumatic. Add to that the uncertainty of waiting for test results, waiting for vaccine supplies to become available, and for some farms, the lack of forage due to the heatwave. Stress levels in farmers in the southwest are running high. Stephen Dennis is a livestock farmer in mid-Devon, and he's also the regional manager for the Farming Community Network, which has a 24-hour helpline and supports farming families through difficult times.
Well, I think the first time we saw it, it came into Exmoor a month, 5 weeks ago now, and it caught us all by surprise, I guess. What was being seen on the ground was quite devastating, really. Animals that had, in a very short space of time, become casualties, fatalities, animals that were really looking sick. And it was very much a quick learning curve going into the vaccination programme and treatment programme to try and stop the dire losses that were being seen on farms.
You say dire losses. What kinds of losses are you talking about?
Well, I had someone contact me last week. They reckon they've lost close to 30% of their breeding flock. It's attacking sheep more than cattle, really. Cattle seem to get over it quicker. Probably a day's lameness and then they're on the road to recovery, where sheep, it affects a lot more the respiratory tracts and so forth. So, we've got some big numbers that are being affected, certainly for those that haven't vaccinated earlier on in the year. It's been extremely devastating, and that's on top of the fodder situation. No grass. Animals are probably in a poorer condition than what they would normally would because of the lack of grass. So that's probably not helping with the issues around recovery.
And can people get the vaccine? Have vets got the vaccine?
Short answer to that is no. Thursday last week, I think we started to hear some horror stories that people were wanting to use vaccine or not. They were unable to get it. Nearly all the vets in the southwest weren't sure when they could get some in. Hopefully it will be in within the next 2 weeks, but that's a long time when you're treating animals and wanting to vaccinate to try and stave off the future disease in the flock.
What impact is this having on the mental health of those farmers who are involved?
The extra time it's taking for feeding animals anyway because of the lack of grass is one thing. The extra strain of caring for these animals, the injection, the making sure they're okay, doing this 3 or 4 times a day. If you've got 30 or 40 animals like it takes a considerable time. And I think what we're seeing is that farmers are exhausted. The heat's not helping. A lot of people feel at the end of their tether, I think, is what you would say.
What are people saying to you, and how stressed are farmers?
Well, I think there's a bit of an anxiety that there wasn't an extra warning given. It came upon us pretty quickly. There are some accusations going to government about not having the warning early enough. I know it was around last year sporadically, but nothing like this here. Yeah, it's difficult. It's really hard work. What we're trying to do also is to try and engage with meetings. We get farmers out, have a breakfast or get them off to market, get them off to meetings where we can discuss what's going on, because I think if we can get individuals grouping as teams and then listening to what others are going through as well, it rather softens the blow and makes it feel like as if you're not alone and on your own.
That's Stephen Dennis from the Farming Community Network. DEFRA told us in a statement, "We recognise that this is an incredibly difficult time for animal keepers who are on the front line of this disease, and we're monitoring the situation closely. We continue to work closely with industry and are putting processes in place to bring in additional vaccine supplies to help farmers to protect their livestock." And that's all we've got time for today. I'm Kaz Graham. The producer is Rebecca Rooney. And Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.